Moving now to Arun Raman, who is a director of InfraStrata, who are into storage, and they plan to excavate salt caverns already active in Ireland, or Northern Ireland, County Antrim, and well, got some ambitious plans, so let's hear more about them.
Good evening, everybody. For all those who are expecting to see John Wood, our CEO, this evening, unfortunately he is away on business out of the country. So he conveys his apologies to all of you, which also means you'll have to bear with me for the next 30 minutes. So who are we? We are InfraStrata PLC. We are listed on the AIM exchange, and we are in the business of constructing and commercializing an underground gas storage facility in Northern Ireland. We have a very simple corporate structure consisting of two main subsidiaries, both in Northern Ireland. Islandmagee Energy Limited is the core subsidiary which is involved in the construction of the underground gas store. The Islandmagee Energy Hub Limited is effectively an incubator for future projects. What is our vision? Our vision is to be a leading global energy infrastructure company. And how do we intend to do that? Our core expertise lies in the technical and commercial skills that our team has. We have embarked upon a strategy of taking on projects that are at their pre-FEED stage, developing it, going through FEED, taking it up to FID, at which point we invite our equity partners into the project, sell down a portion of the equity while retaining a portion of that equity. How do we make money? We make money out of three ways, not as yet, but in due course. We will be handling the construction of the project and earning a fee out of the construction management contract. We are technical experts, we are commercial experts, and therefore we'll be operating these facilities. For the operations of that facility, we'll be charging a fee to the project company. And finally, because we retain an equity in every project, we shall be sharing in the dividends of each of those project companies. In order to achieve these objectives, clearly we need a few building blocks. We need a high-performing team, which we are currently in the process of putting together, both on the technical and on the commercial side. The evaluation process for evaluating, analyzing, and taking on new projects needs to be extremely robust, which effectively means that we are not taking any project off the street. We have a list of 30 to 40 criteria, which helps us to pick a project and then take it up to FID and thereafter. We surround ourselves with quality partners. Our partners within the current project are WSP, Atkins, Deep KBB, who do the subsurface work, and Costain, who do the above ground installations. So we are quite particular in picking up the best-in-class experts, surrounding ourselves with them to make sure we're doing the right thing. Clearly, the two building blocks for our business is operational excellence, but equally, we also need to provide sustainable growth. We need to provide value to our shareholders, and that is what the objective of this company is. This is a short video of our project. Rather than explaining the project over 3 hours, hopefully in 3 minutes, you'll be able to grasp this project.
The Islandmagee Gas Storage Project is an exciting project, bringing the energy needs to the local community and also supporting the energy needs of Northern Ireland and beyond. The Islandmagee Energy Gas Storage Project is a solution to the growing gas storage crisis that is developing in the UK since the closing of Centrica's Rough facility, which provided 70% of the UK's gas storage. The brand new state-of-the-art fast cycle facility will provide the security of supply to the island of Ireland and the United Kingdom when fully developed. This project will allow natural gas to be stored in 8 underground salt caverns 1,500 metres below Larnloch. Each cavern will have the capacity to store 50 million cubic metres of gas, providing a buffer against periods of high gas demand and volatility of gas supply, ensuring a security of supply. In 2012, planning permission was granted and a gas storage licence issued. Since then, many thousands of man-hours have been spent to ensure the facility is ahead of its time and future-proofed. There are 4 elements to this process. The well site, located adjacent to Larnloch, the seawater intake and brine outfall, located at Castle Robin on the east coast, the leaching plant, located adjacent to Ballylumford Road, and the gas facilities located again adjacent to Ballylumford Power Station. At the well site, holes will be drilled using directional drilling technology to reach the salt strata, 1,500 metres below the surface. At the surface, the holes will be positioned 5 metres apart and capped with wellheads, situated in sunken cellars to ensure the highest level of safety. The holes are initially drilled vertically and then stepped out to provide safe distances between the caverns. Once the hole is formed, seawater is injected at high pressure, causing the salt to dissolve. As the salt is dissolved, a cavern is created. Each 85-metre diameter cavern is made in sections that take 3 months to complete. After 2 years, the cavern formation process will be complete and the cavern will have reached its full height of 180 metres. Seawater will be drawn in from a designated point 100 metres from the shoreline. Brine, a byproduct of the cavern formation process, will be processed here at the leaching plant prior to being discharged safely back to sea. Both seawater inlet and brine outlet locations have been very carefully considered to ensure minimum impact to the local environment. After the caverns have been formed, in order to inject and withdraw gas, a set injection and withdrawal facility is required. The facility comprises equipment to remove moisture from the natural gas recovered from the caverns and compression equipment to fill the caverns with gas from the network. With the equipment used, this will be able to switch between injection and withdrawal in under 90 minutes. The Islandmagee gas storage project is an exciting project, bringing the energy needs to the local community and also supporting the energy needs of Northern Ireland and beyond.
I hope you enjoyed the video. You can collect your PhD certificates after this. All of you can now build gas stores. This is a very quick artistic impression of the various parts of the gas storage facility. This is the injection and withdrawal site, which is effectively the gas plant. That's the leaching plant. That's the well site, where we'll have 7 bore wells. And that is the seawater intake and outfall. In terms of the company's future opportunities, let's talk a little bit about its current opportunity. We are building the gas storage facility in Northern Ireland. It will be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 consists of developing 2 caverns at a capex of £114 million. We will immediately thereafter proceed to phase 2, which is the leaching and the commercializing of caverns 3 to 7 at a total cost of £151 million. The estimated capex, as per the latest feed report that was issued in December last year, is a sum total of circa £265 million. The intention is, at the moment, InfraStrata owns 100% of the project. We clearly require equity financing at the project level to develop the facility. Once we are heading towards FID and take FID, we shall be reducing our equity interest within that project to bring to allow a new equity investor to participate in that project. We often get branded as a one-trick pony, which in reality we are at the moment, because our focus is clearly in developing this gas storage facility. Equally, we are conscious of the fact that we need to increase our shareholder value, we need to increase the exposure of the company, get involved in other projects. Therefore, we have set up the Islandmagee Energy Hub Limited. This was set up on Christmas Eve, since we had nothing better to do at that point. We set up Islandmagee Energy Hub Limited with the intention of incubating some key projects. Within the hub, we're looking at an additional 15 caverns that could potentially be developed within the existing salt strata. Key to the success of a larger portfolio of salt caverns is the twinning of the Scotland Northern Ireland pipeline called the SNIP. At the moment, it has the capacity to accommodate the flows of 2 caverns, potentially 3 caverns. But if we start looking at projects of the size of 15 to 18 caverns plus, we will certainly need to develop a new pipeline, which is why we're looking at twinning the SNIP. During our discussions with the various offtake partners, one of the key drivers to the UK gas market has been clearly gas storage, but also the ability to bring in LNG cargoes. And one of the comments we have received is, can we build an FSRU? Within that discussion, we have now engaged with Costain to create an FSRU proposal to understand the economics and the technicals behind an FSRU. Along with the FSRU, clearly there is going to be boil-off of LNG and a whole host of other activities surrounding LNG. And we have an LNG combined heat and power project that we are looking at. Finally, we are futuristic, we are ambitious. Clearly, there's a need to move away from hydrocarbons going forward. And one of our projects that we're looking at on a pilot basis is the introduction of hydrogen within the methane grid. A place like Islandmagee in Northern Ireland, which is quite small, is an ideal place to test a grid that will have a combination of both natural gas and hydrogen. We have completed FEED. We are heading towards FID, Final Investment Decision. The critical path to FID has got a whole bunch of activities that need to be completed. We intend on taking FID in the first half of this year. In order to achieve FID, we have some critical elements to go through. We recently completed a funding round in January of £1.5 million, which will enable us to buy the remaining land that is needed for the project. We issued an invitation to tender in December last year. We have received responses, and the EPC contractors have sought clarifications from us. We expect to complete that process by the end of this month, early next month. We are a project of common interest, which basically means that we are eligible for EU grants. We have a grant structure in place already for the FEED study, a portion of which is due to come to us in the month of June, July. Further to that, we are applying for a works grant of nearly 40 million euros that will help us, if it comes through, to keep a substantial portion of the equity with us. To be perfectly clear, any EU funding is not considered in the economics of this project. If it does come through, it is pretty much the cherry on the cake. But all our assumptions, all our economics, all our discussions are predicated on the fact that we will not receive any EU funding. If it comes through, it's great. If it doesn't, the economics still work. In order to achieve FID, there are 4 critical components that need to be completed. We need to have an offtake contract in place. We need to have an equity partner. We need to have a debt provider, and we need to have an EPC contractor. All discussions are moving along in parallel, and they're moving along very well. One of the questions we get asked time and time again is, why do we need gas storage in this country? Before I answer that question, let's look at what exactly is happening within the gas storage market. The UK has historically had one of the lowest levels of gas storage across Europe. In fact, we are the lowest gas storage capacities across Europe. While Europe has between 25 and 50% of its annual demand sitting in storage, we are down to 1%. We consume 100 billion cubic meters of gas every year within the UK. Our existing projects, our existing stores can contribute 1.5% of the annual demand. The huge game changer within the industry has been the closure of Centrica's Rough storage facility. It was the largest gas store in the UK, contributing 3.5 BCM of gas storage. That's disappeared. It's now being decommissioned as we speak, and we're left with 1.5% of annual demand sitting in storage. In terms of the planned projects that we are observing across the country, no other project has started FEED. You have a whole bunch of projects in the table below that have received planning permission. None of them have started FEED. Islandmagee is the only project that has completed FEED, is heading towards FID. In terms of where we are relative to competition, we are probably 2.5 to 3 years ahead of the closest competition. We are not gas traders, although I am from a trading background, so I would love to get back into the trading game, but we don't have a mandate to trade natural gas or to have a trading book. We tend to shadow gas traders. Our offtake clients are gas traders, trading houses, utilities, and we tend to understand, or we tend to follow their actions to understand what's happening in the market. The two main drivers for UK gas are demand and supply. UK gas demand, as we see it, is going to be fairly stable over the next 10 to 15 years. It is going to be underpinned by strong domestic demand, strong commercial demand, and also new build of CCGTs. So the way we look at it, the UK will continue to be a gas-led economy. There will be a place for renewables, there will be a place for solar and wind and other projects, but gas is going to lead the energy mix predominantly. The more interesting bit for us is what's happening on the supply side. The UK has historically produced its own gas with the UKCS. We used to be a net producer and exporter of natural gas. That has now declined dramatically to the extent that now we are a net importer of natural gas. Going forward, and the UK gas supply chart that you see on the right hand side has been published very kindly by National Grid. They issue their annual 10-year statement. So it makes a very interesting read. Going forward in the next 15 to 20 years, the UKCS is likely to supply only 10% of UK's gas demand. Where is the balance going to come from? We have the two interconnectors between Europe and the UK. We have an interconnector called Langelid between Norway and the UK. They have been flowing very well, and except for some problems on and off, we have had reliable supplies between Europe and the UK and Norway and the UK. We have two regasification terminals, actually three regas terminals, the Isle of Grain, the Dragon Terminal and South Hook. We have seen them highly underutilized over the past 4 or 5 years. We are now seeing an uptick in LNG cargoes coming into this country. The big surprise for us is the introduction of shale gas. National Grid predict that 30% of UK supply is going to come from shale. We have been following the shale market for the past few years. The total number of wells drilled are effectively 2, of which only 1 is flowing. How are we going to get to 30% of UK supply through shale is a question mark.
I want to leave time for questions, so if you can just bring it to conclusion.
Essentially the point that we are trying to make here is that we are dependent on imported gas. 90% of our supply will come from imported gas. If there is a failure in the infrastructure, if the LNG does not turn up on a high demand day such as today or such as what happened in January, we run the risk of not having sufficient gas in the economy. The only answer to that is domestic storage, and that's where we come into play. We are based in Northern Ireland. The key market for us is Northern Ireland, but the bigger beast for us is the UK. In order to integrate ourselves with the mainland UK economy and the domestic demand in the UK, we are going to be using the interconnector between Scotland and Northern Ireland. At the moment, that is unidirectional. As soon as we take FID, the pipeline operator, Mutual Energy, have also committed to take FID to reverse the flow, which effectively means that we will be able to flow gas back from Northern Ireland into the UK. Now, why is this important? For a couple of reasons. One, we are able to increase the capacity of our gas storage facility, but more importantly, the trading houses that we are dealing with, who are our offtake clients, have got a significant exposure to the UK market and to Europe. For them to have physical molecules of gas flowing into the UK is extremely important. It adds optionality, it gives us better pricing. In terms of our cash flows, it's a very typical project cash flow that you can see. We spent the first few years building the project, developing the salt caverns. Phase 1 is for the first 3 years. Thereafter, phase 2 kicks in, which gives us a very healthy, consistent cash flow. The OPEX for these kinds of facilities are quite low, and we expect to see consistent cash flows year on year. In terms of the FID, the jigsaw to FID, as I've explained before, consists of 4 elements: the EPC contract, the offtake contract, the equity provider, and the debt provider. All 4 discussions are running in parallel, and they're progressing well. In terms of some high-level numbers, the equity IRR that's projected is about 21%. Depending upon what discount rate one would take, our NPV sits at between 141 and 2 million pounds. This kind of a project is ideal for a long-term investor, a pension fund, and infrastructure fund that likes consistent cash flows. We're looking at undiscounted free cash flow of nearly $1.6 billion.
You're going to have to go to questions now, if that's all right.
Just the last slide, and then I'm done. In summary, we are looking at a gas market that is increasingly volatile. FEED is now completed. We are heading towards FID. As of this morning, we have independent third-party confirmation that our economics stack up. This is a commercially and economically viable project. We are in advanced discussions with our funding partners. This project is a project that will have a 40-year life, so we can expect consistent cash flows year on year. We are looking at a whole bunch of other projects, as we've discussed. And finally, we are an AIM-listed company. The ultimate beneficiaries of this business are the shareholders, and that's what we aim to achieve in terms of increasing shareholder value.
Thanks, Arun.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Sorry to rush you at the end, but
No
obviously
problem.
you've got a lot of information to give us. So what do people want to ask about this project? Obviously a little different from the last 2, and but you can't move it to the UK mainland as well. But the interconnector aspect sounds very interesting. Question here.
Just on the salt cavern, I'm just interested to know how you make sure that it's 85 meters diameter all the way down. How do you do that? It's 180 meters high.
It's 180 meters high and 85 meters in diameter.
How do you maintain the diameter?
And that is controlled by the leaching process. So essentially what we end up doing is we take the drill downhole, we start leaching, which then effectively means that the salt is dissolved, and then we have a controlled environment in which we are able to determine the size, the diameter, and the height of the store. Now, to be completely fair with you, I'm a commercial person, so this is very limited knowledge that I have, but there are methods in which we can control the process of the salt cavern formation. Just to be clear, salt caverns have been in existence for the last 45 years, It's not a new technology that we have developed.
No, they do it a lot in Europe, don't they?
Yes,
in Germany
absolutely.
and France,
Yeah, it's very popular in Germany, in Austria, and in France, and across the United States as well. So it is not unknown technology. It's very well proven. Where we have a slight edge over the competition is in terms of the above ground installations, where we are putting in brand new compressors, high-tech compressors, a very sophisticated control room that will enable us to utilize this plant quite effectively.
Any other questions? One over there, just in the back.
Can you give us an idea of what the total capital cost of the project will be and the split between debt and equity?
Phase 1 is projected at £114 million, which is the first 2 caverns. Phase 2 is £151 million, which is caverns 3 to 7. So in all, we're looking at a capex spend of about £265 million. The economics that we have built into the models are 35% equity and 65% debt, or call it 40-60. That's the kind of equity debt split that we are talking about, and we are discussing with our equity and debt partners.
Any more for any more? Just one here.
Mic on, please. I'm Donald Leggett, Head of Investor Relations. What can you tell us about the state of play with the debt discussions and the equity discussions?
I think they are progressing very well. We now have a couple of term sheets from equity providers. We have term sheets from banks who are looking at coming together as a consortium to fund the debt side of the project. Clearly, we need to still jump through a few hoops before we can firm up and finalize on both the equity and the debt financing. The intention is to take FID by the end of June, early July, and the indications are we should be able to do it given the nature of the advanced state of negotiations with both equity and debt providers.
And one final question here.
Umberto Nespolo with IO Oil and Gas. What's the typical cycle you're envisaging for the economics for your model?
In terms of the cycle that we are looking at building into the project, phase 1 will have a 30-day cycle, 30 days in, 30 days out. Phase 2, when we have the larger store, will have a 45 to 50-day cycle. So 50 worst case scenario, 50 days in, 50 days out. What we are also trying to achieve over the next couple of months is to create some value engineering with our above ground installation partners like Costain, where we should be able to reduce that cycling time to 40 to 45 days. Clearly, the faster we will cycle, the more value we generate.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you.